It's always great when we get a former NFL quarterback to help us break down whoever could potentially become the Browns' next quarterback. Shaun King, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback, correctly identified Jaden Daniels as the belle of the ball in the 24 NFL draft. So, Shaun, we're going to go through 5 different quarterback options here and figure out who's the best one for the Browns. And you're going to give us a little insight on what you like and what you don't like about some of these guys.
Well, here's what's interesting. Last year's class was really talented and really deep. I don't think this year's group is as talented or as deep, but that doesn't mean that we can't find quality NFL quarterback play in this class. So let's start with Cam Ward, who I think is unquestionably the number one quarterback in this draft. All of these kids are going to be productive coming out of college for the most part. They're older because of the COVID year. The offenses, the game is all geared more towards production. So statistically, you have to be careful on falling in love with a quarterback. And I think when you're really acute at evaluating, it's about traits. And as we get into the Cam Ward field, this is what I love about Ward. The most arm talent in this particular class, the most improvisation skills. And what I really like is he's going to multiple programs and turn them into productive and winning teams. Haven't been able to win a championship yet, but he's proven that he makes your team, your organization better.
So with that, Shaun, let's dive into a couple of plays. These 3 all come from Miami's game this season against Cal. Ward ended the game with 5 touchdown passes. None of these are actual scores. We picked some plays that you may not have seen yet to get a better understanding of what Cam Ward brings to the table as a prospect. And I'll let this roll. You tell me when to stop it, Shaun, and break down what you see here from Cameron Ward.
Well, as you let this roll, just for context, you go ahead and start it, Mike. Remember, they had to come back to win this game. A lot of it was because some of the mistakes that Cam made. But we talk about football IQ. We talk about identifying coverages. And we go back to the sideline right quick. And you can see from the end zone, you see that safety running over there. This looks like a basic cover 2 look. But what they're really doing is playing cover 2 to the field and man to the boundary. If we go back to this is a combo coverage here by this Cal defense. Cam Ward realizes it. And this is what I love about it. That ball is right on the button. Like he makes this decision. A great job of recognizing it. He sees the corner squat, so he doesn't have to out route. And he has the arm talent to put that ball accurately with velocity to that outside receiver. So I'm telling everyone, Cam Ward is unquestioned the number one quarterback in this draft. He's not my number one player, but this is one of the reasons. Recognition, arm talent, he has it all.
And Shaun, real quick, when you mentioned arm talent, from the end zone angle, you can see it pretty well here, but that's a half step and let it rip. It's not like he's stepping into it and certainly finds enough velocity to deliver that all the way to the numbers from across the hash mark.
Absolutely. And this is why I was really surprised that he didn't throw at the combine, because he has that it. Like when you see 5 quarterbacks throwing side by side, like you can tell the ball comes out different from a certain guy, and Cam's that guy. So I actually was pretty surprised that he didn't throw at the combine. But like you said, this is just one example. We're going to see a few more of his ability to really create torque and put velocity on the ball without having to step into his throws.
All right, play number 2 here, Shaun. Same game, and Cam Ward once again showing off that arm talent that has many scouts calling him the unquestioned number 1 quarterback in this class.
He is. I mean, he's talented. I think if he's in last year's draft, New England's got a real conversation between him and Drake May, because I think they're kind of very similar. He's a little more experienced than Drake, but from a skill set standpoint, you know, they're pretty similar. If you want to let it roll here, you know, you just watch some of these throws and they translate, you know, kind of a half roll here, guy going back across the field. Just the ability to not have the receiver break stride, hit him in rhythm. Like, not a lot of guys can make this throw and do it accurately. And watch how effortlessly Cam does it. You know, that's just like he's out, you know, playing pitch and catch with you, Mikey, at the local park. And the ball
I would have caught it for the record, Shaun. If I'm the receiver, I'm catching. That's a perfectly thrown ball. Miami has to come away with 6 points on this throw.
You think this is 60 yards effortlessly on the button, maybe even 65 because of where he catches it in the end zone. And like all of these guys can't make this throw without putting complete torque into it. So I mean, you see this jump out the film. I think his arm talent's unquestioned. He has a big-time NFL arm. And when I'm talking arm talent, I mean, the minute Cam Ward gets into the National Football League, he's in the top 20% of quarterbacks already in the National Football League as far as arm talent. Like, so you're getting a piece of clay that has elite traits.
All right, Shaun, we're doing 3 plays for each quarterback. This is the third and final play from the Miami-Cal game for Cam Ward. And after listening to you from the first 2 plays, it seems like in this draft class, it is Cam Ward, then it's everybody else.
Yeah, and I think it's a large separation, in my opinion, between whoever's going to be number 2. And we'll get into that as we go through the clips of some of the other guys. But, here's just another example of Cam in the pocket. You see he's directing the safety by pointing to the single receiver side. He comes back, throws the ball over the underneath coverage in front of the deep coverage, and does it with great ball location, great torque velocity. Not a lot of guys can effortlessly make these throws. And I think he's trying to point to the ref. He's helping referee to play at the same time as he's telling the ref that illegal participation by Cal. You see they got a guy running off. and I'll be honest with you, I'm glad that happened, because one of the only hesitations I have with Cam is I think sometimes he's a little too free at quarterback. He's a little too carefree, I guess careless at times. It doesn't really result in a lot of turnovers, 39 touchdowns, only 7 picks. But he will have to mature slightly with some of the things that he does, just from an antic standpoint. But the talent is unquestioned.
Well, if Cam Ward isn't the pick for the Browns at 2 and both quarterbacks are on the board, the other option is Shedeur Sanders, the Colorado quarterback, the son of Deion. And when you look at some of the tape, we found 3 plays from his game this season against Cincinnati. There are certainly some throws that make you go, okay, I can see it. And Shaun, I'm curious, as a former quarterback, if you see it too.
Shedeur Sanders, big-time brand, big-time platform. Is he a big-time player? Roll this clip. It's some good and it's some bad when we're talking Shedeur. I like this because it's within the structure of the play, which you don't always see with Shedeur. And I think the one elite trait that he has is ball location when he throws the ball in rhythm. Like, that's a great throw because it gets over the underneath defender. It's to the sideline where only his wide receiver can catch it. It's a tight, restricted window. And you see these kind of throws pop up all across Shedeur's film. The question will be, is he disciplined enough to do this all the time? Because all of the things that I said Cam Ward is, Shedeur is not necessarily. He does not have a huge, big-time arm. He's not a elite-level athlete. He doesn't have Josh Allen's size, but he gets it done. Drew Brees, I think, is one of the top 5 passing yardage leaders in NFL history. Can Shedeur turn himself into a Drew Brees type quarterback? I think he can. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not convinced he's my number 2 quarterback, but he's in the conversation because the one thing I do know about Shedeur, he can handle the spotlight. Unlike all of the other quarterbacks in this class, when you talk about Cam Ward, a lot of people didn't know who Cam Ward was until he got to Miami this year. You talk about Tyler Shough. Nobody knew who he was after the season. Kyle McCord, a lot of people didn't know he played at Syracuse. Jaxson Dart, he's kind of just been one of the guys at Ole Miss that Lane's kind of, found since he's been there. So Shedeur's the one guy in this group that we know that can handle the spotlight.
Accuracy is something you hear quite a bit when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, Shaun. And this play against Cincinnati, I thought was a pretty darn accurate ball, considering he's fitting it between not 2, but 3 Cincinnati defenders.
As I mentioned in the previous clip, ball location is Shedeur's elite trait. He does a great job of locating the football, especially when he throws the ball in rhythm. If you want to go ahead and run the play, this is a situation where they're play action passing, trying to get the underneath coverage to move up. And, that's just a really good ball. And here's the thing about Shedeur. If he did this all the time, I would say Cam Ward has legit competition to be the first quarterback selected in this draft. Because when Shedeur plays within the system, gets rid of the ball quickly, on rhythm, on time, he is a really good quarterback. The problem is he doesn't consistently do this. He tries to extend too many plays. He tries to create too many big plays. Can that be coached out of him at the next level? We're going to see. But this version of Shedeur that we're showing in these clips is a really good quarterback and one that's going to have a lot of success in the National Football League.
All right, last clip from Shedeur here. This ends up being a touchdown, Shaun. But of the 3 throws, this may be the worst of the 3, despite the fact it ended with 6 points here. There have been questions about Shedeur's arm strength, and it's something that he's going to have to answer throughout the pre-draft process and at his pro day, because there are enough throws like this on tape that I do think makes his arm strength concern valid.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think Shedeur's elite trait is his ball location. Also, the fact that he's been in the spotlight since he was a teenager, so you know he can deal with that kind of pressure. But let's start with the good on this play. Go ahead and run it, Mike. The one thing you cannot question about Shedeur Sanders is he mentally and physically tough? This is a situation where his right tackle gets beat, he gets pressure, he stands in the pocket and tries to deliver the ball. Just watch the rush and watch the throw. You see, that guy's getting to him, so he can't step into the ball. Now, to your point, Mikey, here's where, to me, the separation starts to happen with Cam Ward. We saw Cam, without being able to step into the ball, into the throw, still be able to put these throws accurately with velocity down the field. And so when I say Shedeur's arm talent isn't on the same level as some of the other guys in this class, this is what I mean. He identified the coverage. He had the toughness to sit in the pocket. But because he does not have elite arm talent, this ball flutters a little bit, still completes the throw now. Don't take that away from him. But when we're talking evaluating who can change a franchise, all of these things matter. And I think this is the one area where Cam Ward is significantly ahead of Shedeur Sanders. And that's just arm talent, the ability to make these tough throws and still put velocity on the ball when you're in a compromised position, releasing the football.
And that's something that even as you develop as a person, get stronger, that can change a little bit, but you either have it or you don't in terms of arm talent, right, Shaun? That's not something.
Yeah, that's generally a God-given thing. You know, either you're born with it or you're not. I mean, you can do things to strengthen your core, you know, to tighten your fundamentals that allow you to throw the ball with a little more velocity and torque than what you normally would. But the guys with the big arms, you know, those guys got them. Now, they're not always the best quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. And if Cam Ward didn't have the film he had to go with that big arm, I wouldn't be sitting here advocating for him. Jamarcus Russell had a huge arm. To be honest, Jalen Milroe probably has the biggest arm in this draft class, and he's not the quarterback that Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward are.
Continuing on down your top 5 quarterback prospects here, Shaun, is Tyler Shough out of Louisville. He's played 7 years of college football. He does have an extensive injury history. But if you took out all of those things and just looked at the 2024 tape, Shaun, you have a hard time finding some better tape than this kid's.
You're absolutely right. And when you see the success that the older guys had last year, you know, your Bo Nix, your Michael Penix, who came in and played later, Tyler is kind of had the same career. Started at Oregon, went to Texas Tech, couldn't really get a full-time starting job because either the incumbent was really good or when he got a chance, he got injured. Finally found a home last year at Louisville. And although the numbers don't jump off the screen, the film does. And if you're going to go ahead and roll this here, first of all, he's the biggest quarterback in this class. Just coming from the combine, he measured right under 6'5". Actually went out and ran low 4.6s. So he's a big guy with athleticism. And, man, when you watch this tape, if you just take all the names off of all these quarterbacks, Tyler has some of the best tape. I mean, this is big time here. Under pressure. I mean, that's just a throw that most guys wouldn't attempt to make, and even fewer guys could actually make. So he's going to be a fascinating evaluation for pro teams. I think the first thing with Tyler is, how does your training staff view his medical history? Are any of the injuries something that you think are going to linger and be a problem? But when it just comes to the best that he's shown, it's as good as Cam Ward. Let me just say that.
Second clip here from Tyler Shough, Shaun, and you said it in the last one. I'm going to reemphasize this. Blind resume, if these were just black and white dots and you saw the tape, throws like this from Tyler Shough can compare to any throw from any quarterback in this class.
And I know we're talking Tyler here, but it's one of the reasons that, you know, if I was advising Shedeur Sanders, I would be honest with him. Man, if we don't ace this process, we might not be the second quarterback selected. We got to roll the film. First of all, Tyler's bigger. Tiger has a better arm, and he makes throws like this all the time when you break down the Louisville tape. I mean, this is a dime for a right-handed quarterback rolling to his left to throw that ball with that ball location and that velocity. Look, this ball isn't dying on the wide receiver. I think this is Ja'Cory Harris, Alabama transfer too.
Yep.
I mean, that ball is right on the button. And listen, Louisville got off to a hot start this year. You know, they faltered a little bit when they played teams with more talent than them. But Tyler had a really, really impressive year when you look at the elite component of what he's able to do throwing the football. He's going to walk in a building. He's going to be physically more impressive than some of those other guys. And I would not be surprised at all if Tyler ends up being the second quarterback selected in this year's draft.
Shaun, to put the touch on that pass, rolling left, throwing across your body, that's all the no-nos that coaches say don't do. But if you got arm talent like that, you can get away with some things that most quarterbacks simply cannot.
And I'll be honest, the reason that I think he has a chance to make this extremely competitive with Shedeur is his floor, to me, is higher based on the film than Shedeur's. Like, Shedeur's got some bad tape out there from this past year. I mean, where he's not seeing the field clearly, where he's running around taking terrible sacks. The last time we saw him was his worst performance ever versus BYU in the bowl game. Like, even the games that Louisville lost, Tyler still looks like the best or one of the best players on the field. It's just Louisville's outmanned. They're outgunned from a personnel and talent standpoint. So it's going to be something to watch as we get closer and closer to draft day.
Final play here from Tyler Shough. This time we get the reverse end zone angle, Shaun, and it is another perfectly thrown touchdown pass from the 7th-year quarterback of the Louisville Cardinals.
Yeah, he's had a long time to get it right, but boy, did he get it right. And I'll be honest with you, for a comparison, Kenny Pickett sort of had the same kind of career that Tyler did, but it wasn't the switching schools. It was he never really established himself as an NFL prospect until his final year of collegiate eligibility. To me, the difference between Kenny Pickett and Tyler Shough, Tyler's more talented. Like with Pickett, it was just production. Jordan Addison had a great year. It was big numbers. But to me, when you watch some of these throws, I mean, look at the ball location. It's against Miami. This was a back-and-forth game that, if not for a few turnovers by Louisville, if I'm not mistaken, in that game, they might have outgunned Cam Ward head-to-head. But I remember watching this game, and I challenge you guys to go and rewatch this game and tell me that you feel like there's a big difference between Cam Ward and Tyler Shough based on how they played in this game. I'm a big Tyler fan.
Keeping it rolling in our quarterback prospect breakdown series with Shaun King. Next up, Jaxson Dart, the Ole Miss product who played 3 seasons for Lane Kiffin in the Grove. And Shaun, very differentiating opinions here on Jaxson Dart. Some guys love him, some guys not as much, but the tape speaks for itself on some of these plays.
He does, and he's a very experienced quarterback. He's played a lot of football, 3-year starter for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, got progressively better each year as his touchdown passes increased in all 3 of the subsequent years. As we roll the tape, he does some really good things. He's very evasive in the pocket. He has excellent functional mobility. He has arm talent. You've seen him throwing down the field to Trey Harris and that group of wide receivers there at Ole Miss. He reminds me, Mikey, of Baker Mayfield. If we continue to go through the different clips and we could just run it and kind of let me just, talk about what he brings to the table, that's who he reminds me of. He's kind of got like that moxie. Baker doesn't have the biggest arm, but he got a good arm. He's not the greatest athlete, but he's a good athlete. He doesn't have prototype size, but he has good size. A lot of that is Jaxson Dart. And I think he's going to have an advantage because he's not going to come into the NFL with those expectations. But these kind of plays, they flash on the screen time after time. Him getting rushed by elite pass rushers, getting out the pocket, head downfield, making a big throw. This was 3rd and 14 in a 2-point game in the 3rd quarter, and you see it pop up over and over again. In my opinion, because I don't think this is a very clear evaluation after Cam Ward when it comes to this draft class, Jaxson Dart already is number 2 on some teams' board. I truly believe there's going to be a large variance on who the number 2 quarterback is. And, somebody's going to believe in Jaxson Dart. Somebody's going to believe in Shedeur Sanders. I think somebody's going to believe in Tyler Shough. But his comp from the NFL level is Baker Mayfield, in my opinion.
Shough, when you look at some of these plays, and we just kind of ran through the 3 as you were talking, in my unexpertise opinion, I did not play quarterback at any level besides the backyard. He kind of has that weird it factor where it doesn't always seem normal, but he finds a way to get it done. Ole Miss never had a ton of success. They were good while he was there, but never maybe as good as we thought. And I just wonder how that part of it translates for a guy that may not have the exceptional traits, but can still find different ways to get the results you want.
And I think that's why he's been a winner. Ole Miss never could, put a team good enough to compete with Georgia, who was at their height, and Bama, who was rolling. But, they're a 9-10 win team every year with him as a starting quarterback. So I just think you said it right. He's got the it factor. And, I think he has better arm talent than, let's say, a couple different guys that are in this draft class. He's just as athletic as everybody, in my opinion, but Cam Ward. And I'm just telling you, Mike, he's number 2 already on some teams' board. Now, does that translate to top half of the first-round draft pick? We won't know until draft day. I think we'll have more clarity after free agency. But if you get Jaxson Dart, you're getting an experienced player that I think is ready to come in and help your organization sooner than later.
Shaun, we're doing 6 quarterbacks for this QB breakdown. This is number 5. We'll get to the 6 coming up in the WKYC show in a second. But Kyle McCord, the former Buckeye quarterback, turned Syracuse quarterback who turned heads in the ACC this season. What's your take on Kyle McCord as an NFL draft prospect?
Out of all the quarterbacks in this draft class, Mikey, and you can run the tape, he has the most boom or bust floor ceiling of any of them. His good is really good. You're talking about a guy that left Ohio State. He played really good, 24 touchdown passes, 6 picks, went to Syracuse, who really no one had talked about Syracuse football in quite a few years, and threw for almost 30 touchdowns. The interceptions went up. That's alarming. He had 2 games, I think, where he just really played some bad football. And I think his floor is get everybody in the building fired. But his ceiling, and we're talking Kyle McCord here, is, man, still in the draft. Like, his good is really good. You can see the arm talent here. You see the ball location. I thought the passing game at Syracuse was a lot more pro-centric than some of his peers in this draft. They were under center much more. He had to make a lot of throws in the contested situations because Syracuse doesn't have elite speed at the receiver position. They've got bigger bodied guys that can make contested catches. So, I can make a highlight film that says Kyle McCord should be drafted first round, and I can make a mistake reel on Kyle McCord that says he should go undrafted. So I think because his lows were really low, he's probably going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, in my opinion. But he's one of those guys, Mikey, that if he can just cut down on the mistakes, could end up being a quality starter in the National Football League for years.
Let me ask you this, Shaun. So you have the boomer bust potential here with Kyle McCord. It feels like he has to go to the right system then to be able to reach that ceiling that you seem to like a lot. Do the Browns, with current Kevin Stefanski as head coach, Andrew Berry as general manager, Tommy Rees as offensive coordinator, is that the kind of system that would fit Kyle McCord on the next level? Or do you think he has to go to another team or another offensive system to maximize his pro potential?
I'll be honest. If Cleveland decides to go with a veteran in free agency at quarterback and comes out of the draft, and I don't have their draft picks right in front of me, but I'm saying this under the presumption that they have a 3rd and 4th round pick.
They have 2 thirds and a 4th, just so you know, Shaun.
Okay, if they came out of this draft with Kyle McCord in the 3rd or 4th round, I think they had a really good draft, because now you'd imagine that they added 2 starters in the 1st and 2nd round and got a potential starting quarterback in the 3rd or the 4th. So you'd have to say on the surface that would be an extremely good draft for the Browns.
And last but not least here, Shaun, on Kyle McCord, the good we see on the highlights here, the bad, what happens when stuff doesn't go right for Kyle McCord? Why is the bad enough that you think has the potential to get an entire staff fired?
Because it's about decision making and mental toughness. There are times in the game where, and for context, you remember Sam Darnold, final regular season game versus the Lions, Sam Darnold, playoff game versus the Rams. In those games where he didn't play well, Kyle kind of has that lost in the spotlight, I'm in the wilderness without a compass kind of look on his face. And that just speaks about, his emotional and mental immaturity. Can he grow out of that? He's a guy that's only started 2 years as a quarterback in college. So he doesn't come in with, this vast wealth of experience. So he still, has some growth potential in those areas. So I think it can be fixed, but it is an alarming thing. And then the decision making. In the games where the turnovers kind of escalated, it was bad decisions. So is that just a situation where it's a brand new system, first year in the system at Syracuse, or is it he's untrustworthy once the whistle blows? The big question I would want to ask Kyle McCord, and if I was a GM, this would be my first question. Why not go back to Syracuse? I really want to know what his answer is for that. Second year in that system, probably would be top 5 preseason in the Heisman voting, could potentially play his way into a legitimate first-round quarterback, based on the evaluations of the majority of teams. I would really be interested in what his answer to that question would be.
All right, Shaun, Will Howard is the talk of the town here in Cleveland, considering he just won a national championship 2 hours south in Columbus. After the combine, he tested well. People seem to think he has a chance to potentially sneak into the back of the first round, if not go somewhere on early day 2. I hear the chuckle from you, so I don't think you're in that camp, but we got 3 plays here from the national championship to highlight some of what Will Howard does well, Shaun.
Well, let me first of all tell everybody in Ohio and Buckeye Nation, congratulations on winning the national title. Will Howard did a great job of managing the game on the best college football team money could buy, and it worked out. But as far as him being a first-round quarterback prospect, and I'm glad we're doing this post-combine, because anybody that watched the quarterbacks of the combine, Will Howard was absolutely the worst. I do think that he has an opportunity, though, to be a late-round draft pick, meaning a 6th or 7th round draft pick that becomes a quintessential backup. A guy that's good for the quarterback room, a guy that's professional, is always there on time. If something happened and he had to play a quarter or a half, he'd be able to manage the game and not lose because of the quarterback. So when I'm evaluating Will and you can run the play, that's just what I see. And it's not a knock. It just is what it is. Makes good decisions, but look at this ball. That ball is floating. That ball is a low ball at 17, has the reach. I think that's tape that he has to reach down to grab. All those other guys that have that elite arm talent, that ball is in the face mask. And it's gaining velocity as it gets to the pass catcher. And, this isn't an isolated thing. I think this is also an issue that Quinn Ewers from Texas has. He very similar arm talent to Will Howard. And it just is what it is. God done bless us all with big-time traits. Now, can he overcome what I think is a lack of actual elite natural ability? Yeah, he did it this year at Ohio State. But to think that he's a first-round draft pick, I can't get in the boat and say I agree with that. I can't even say that I think he's a day 2 draftable guy. I think he's a back half of the day 3 kind of quarterback that could end up playing a long time as a backup, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Shaun, Jay Crawford's going to be very upset with you after what you just said. I'm just going to tell you that now. You're going to get an angry text from Jay, who predictably loves Will Howard. Here's the second play we got, Shaun. And in the national championship game, he did start nearly perfect in the first half. This was one of those throws.
Well, I love Jay. That's my guy. I'm happy that Ohio State won. I think this is a great job of Will Howard going through his progressions and making the right decision under pressure. He throws an accurate ball. That's why I think he can be a career backup. I think if he has to come into the game, you're getting a guy that sees the field well, that's able to execute the offense. But when we're talking about first-round pick, I'm talking about a guy that can change our organization, right? Because, Jay, when you see this, I want you to think about it like this. If I take a player in the first round and I bypass another player that's elite, what am I doing? It'd be like when you look at this draft, the edge rushers are good. So Cleveland is losing Myles Garrett. What if I drafted Will Howard instead of Myles Garrett coming out of college?
Not good.
Because we needed a quarterback. You're still going to need a quarterback if you draft Will Howard. I don't think, when it comes to traits, that he fits in the top 32 quarterbacks in the world. So you're going to have, in my opinion, what would be the least talented quarterback in the National Football League. Now, he could still put it together and make it work, but I think you're rolling the dice that the odds just aren't in your favor. So I'm happy for Will. I'm happy for the Buckeyes. I thought they earned this national title because their path to this national title was extremely difficult when you see who they had to beat. But if you're asking my honest opinion, I just don't think Will Howard is a starting quarterback in the National Football League.
The last play we have from Will Howard here, Shaun, is the one that will go down in the record books in the minds of all Ohio State fans. Notre Dame making a comeback late, and that was put to bed when Will Howard found Jeremiah Smith on this deep bomb to seal the deal. Shaun, it was a completion, but in your opinion, was it a great throw?
Well, here's the thing. What took you so damn long? Was it Chip Kelly or was it Will Howard? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time Jeremiah Smith got a target in the entire second half of this game. That's why the game was close. Like, one thing I want to tell Will, when you got really good players, give them a chance to be really good players. Again, this is a great anticipation. They caught Notre Dame in a very vulnerable coverage where Jeremiah was one-on-one with no safety help. So he does a good job of inside stemming this route, but that's an impossible cover for the corner. So it's a great completion in a pressure situation by Will Howard, but I don't think there's a draft-eligible quarterback that doesn't make this throw.